You know, when a police general with nearly 4 decades of experience takes the stand, you expect things to be by the book. But Major General Richard Shibiri's testimony at the Madlanga Commission? Well, that was a whole other story. We're talking about very questionable finances, secret recordings, and a contradiction so big it really makes you wonder about the integrity of the whole system. Okay, let's get right into it.
And boom, right there, that's the core of it. That's the commission's chairperson laying it all out. It's a massive accusation, right? He's basically saying that a so-called loan was never a loan to begin with. It was something else, something that had to be disguised and fast once the heat was on. This one suggestion really sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack.
So this whole firestorm really revolves around one single payment of 70,000 Rand. And this isn't just any old transaction. Nope, this is the one that connects two people from completely different worlds, a top-ranking police general and a very controversial businessman who's got a whole list of accusations tied to his name. So on one side, you've got Major General Shibiri, a man who spent 38 years in the South African Police Service. And on the other side, Vusikat Madlanga. He's a businessman. But here's the kicker. He's also a police contractor, and he's been linked in public to some seriously heavy crimes. I mean, you couldn't find two more different professional paths, and yet, somehow, a personal, financial line got drawn right between them.
Okay, so to really get why the commission was so suspicious, we've got to do what they did, follow the money. And this isn't just about who paid whom. It's all about the timing, the reasons given, and how it was paid back. All of these details just screamed red flag to the investigators.
The timeline here is just, wow, it's what makes this whole thing so hard to swallow. Just look at this. On September 13th, Shibiri gets WhatsApp messages laying out these serious criminal allegations against Madlanga. He knows who this guy allegedly is. The very next day, he just happens to run into him at a party and talks about needing cash. 4 days later, bam, 70,000 Rand appears in his son's bank account. And then, a few months down the line, right after police raid properties connected to Madlanga, the money is suddenly paid back. The timing is just, well, to say it's suspicious is putting it lightly.
So, the big question is, why did he even need this money? Well, Shibiri's official story was that he needed it to build a wall at his house, which you might remember is different from the first story about needing it for his son's car. The story was already changing, but this is where it really starts to fall apart. The commission's advocates pulled out his bank statements, and they showed he had plenty of cash to help his son or build that wall without borrowing a cent from anyone, let alone from a controversial businessman he knew was facing some really serious allegations.
And this, right here, this is the kicker. It perfectly captures the contradiction. The chairperson asks a simple, direct question: would you borrow money from a criminal or someone who is alleged to be a criminal? And Shibiri's answer is a clear, firm no. But his actions, based on the timeline we just saw, tell a completely different story. He knew about the allegations before he asked for and accepted the money.
And if you thought the loan was strange, the repayment was even weirder. The first 50,000 Rand didn't even go back to Madlanga himself. It went to one of his company accounts. And the last 20,000? That was paid in cash. Shibiri's explanation for the cash? He said he sold some cows. The commission, of course, saw this for what it might be, a way to muddy the waters, to make that clean financial link between the two of them a lot harder to trace.
But believe it or not, the story doesn't stop with the shady money. It actually takes an even bigger turn with a secret recording. And this is where we shift from questions about money to something much more explosive: political interference deep inside the police force.
Now, when he was first asked about a very specific phone call he had on December 16th with an undercover officer they called Witness A, General Shibiri was totally firm. He said he couldn't recall the most damaging parts of their chat, and he flat out denied making any serious allegations against his fellow officers. He was really drawing a line in the sand, trying to shut it down.
And that's the question that just changed everything. I mean, it's one thing to say, I don't remember, when it's just your word against someone else's. It's a whole other thing to say it when there might be hard proof. And that's exactly what the commission was about to get.
Because, yeah, the call was recorded. Witness A, probably feeling like his own reputation was on the line with Shibiri denying everything, handed over the full audio recording to the commission. All of a sudden, this wasn't one man's word against another. It was one man's word against a tape recording.
So what was actually on that tape? Well, it was a conversation that seemed to confirm the commission's absolute worst fears: that senior police officials could be digging for information not for justice but for something else, something way more sinister.
This is the absolute bombshell moment from the recording. Shibiri is heard telling witness A that another general, General Shibiri, is going to want an update on a big arrest. And why? Because, and I quote, he wants it for the other side. I mean, that just hangs in the air, right? Who or what is the other side?
So now he's caught on tape, and his explanations start to get creative. First, Shibiri claimed the other side just meant the arrested guy's family. A bit of a stretch, but okay. Then, when he was pushed on it, the story changed again. He said it was just a preposition, like a proposition or just a phrase you'd use in a casual chat. You can just see how the story isn't holding up.
But the commission's advocate had a third, much more chilling idea. What if Shibiri wasn't just gossiping? What if he was actually an active player in all this? What if he was on General Shibiri's side and he was using this call to try and pump the undercover officer for sensitive information, info that had no business leaving official channels?
So let's step back. Why does this one testimony from one general matter so much? Because this whole situation gives us a peek behind the curtain at a much, much bigger problem. The very real possibility of corruption and political games being played at the highest levels of our police force.
And that brings us right back to why the Madlanga Commission even exists. Its whole job is to investigate exactly this: political interference and corruption in the criminal justice system. Shibiri's testimony isn't just some side drama. It's a textbook example of the very thing this commission was created to expose and to solve.
The consequences here are just massive. This whole thing points to possible political meddling, it makes you question the integrity of the people leading the police, and it even suggests that criminal groups might be working their way into law enforcement. And when people can't trust the police to be fair, their faith in the entire justice system starts to crumble. And that, right there, is what's truly at stake.
So in the end, we're left with this really unsettling question. The evidence brought before the commission paints a pretty clear picture of contradiction, of deception, from a man who spent 38 years of his life supposedly upholding the law. And it forces all of us to ask, if this is what's happening at the top, then who exactly is policing the police?